of the Everything College Basketball Podcast, episode 193. I'm, of course, your host, Josh Burton, and it's a different one today. A very familiar face that you see on your screen if you're watching along with us live on the Twitter, on the YouTube channel. It's our good friend from the Road to the Garden and the Ding and DeRosa podcast, and a longtime friend of ours the last couple of years. Mr. Michael DeRosa joins me today. DeRosa, it's just you and I for now. Peyton hopefully will be joining us. We mentioned on Friday's show in episode 192 that Trevor is traveling. He was at the Ohio State football game. Kind of shit-faced yesterday, which is hilarious to think about. And we talked about Coach Parra getting the honor of being inducted into the Pennsylvania Athletics Hall of Fame. Really cool stuff for him. Can't wait to hear all about his journeys on Thursday's show. But DeRosa, it's your first official show of year 7 with us. I'm happy to have you. We got a lot to talk about from this weekend.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be here. And I just want to reiterate that, I get a text from Josh the other day, and he just says, Coach Parra is getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. Can you fill in for him? It's like, you're really upgrading in guest, I see.
Well, I mean, look, he gave us warning ahead of time. We talked about it Friday at the end of the show with him. I mean, he's getting inducted into the Central PA Hall of Fame, like the Athletics Hall of Fame, I should say that. What a cool honor. And
no pressure on me. Really small shoes to fill. You're only filling in for a Hall of Famer.
Well, we can call you the Hall of Famer in the making, right? As always, today's show is brought to you by our sponsors and friends over at Beauty to Beast Nutrition, located in downtown Edinburgh, Indiana. It is a healthy juice bar. I've talked about it many times before. You hear the word protein coffees or boosted teas, and you think bland, boring drinks that are healthy for you. It's not the case. They have multiple flavors. I love the white chocolate mocha protein coffee. It is my absolute favorite. I also love their white chocolate. It's like a smoothie, basically, and it tastes just like a milkshake. Phenomenal. It's healthy for you, packed with protein. And if you stop by today and tell them ECB sent you, get 10% off. We are very thankful for our friends over there at Beauty Beast Nutrition for the sponsorship. They were with us 2 years ago. They're back now, and we're very, very thankful for them. DeRosa, we were over here. Well, we got a comment here. Oh, there's Trevor. He says, Michael, I'm waiting on the LJ Thomas monologue. You got anything to respond to that?
Yeah, so I sent Trevor a text. I didn't know he was traveling. I sent him a text during the Butler game, and I went back. I read his preview. He wrote the Austin Peay preview for the ECB magazine. Mm-hmm. I went back because that's who Butler was playing. I went back and I looked at it. It's like that, it helps me like prepare for the game, and I think I edited that one too. So like some of the names I was familiar with, it was Cy Witt, who didn't really end up doing much in this game, even though Andre Screen kind of got cooked by a smaller big against Missouri State. Haney, I believe, was the guard he mentioned, and then LJ Thomas, NC State transfer. And I'm like, okay, Trevor probably knows more about this kid than just about anyone we find. And it's like, I look at his note, it's like, okay, he says he's quick, like maybe he'll be something for this team. If he's something for this team, they'll be pretty good. But like, he's like, if he's something, he's kind of the X factor. That kid was the best player on the floor. He was excellent. He looked like the guy that led them to the Final Four. Like, that's how good he was. He had 29 points. He was scoring on literally anybody Butler put on him. He was scoring in many different ways. He was hitting mid-range jumpers. He was stepping back, hitting jump shots. He was blown by people getting to the rim with an easy layup. That kid was awesome. Trevor knew what he was talking about. Believe it or not, if you've listened to this podcast, I think you know that. That kid was special. He was really good. And it really kind of ticks me off because he was better than any guard Butler's had. And it's the second game they've gotten out-dueled at guard. But got to tip the hat to that kid. He was spectacular, absolutely spectacular, and he is a name to watch in the ASUN, just based on how he cooked Butler.
Well, we're talking about Butler here. It never ceases to amaze me, Hansel Emmanuel. Everybody knew him in high school, the one arm and all that. He goes to, where was it? Not Louisiana State. Where was it? Southeastern Louisiana, I think is where he went.
Northwestern State with Corey
Northwestern State. That's I knew it was somewhere in Louisiana. Yeah. And then he transferred. He's playing with this awesome P team, and clips went viral the other day when he got that breakaway, hammered it home. Just the fact that the determination. I think we've talked about him before on the show. The determination to not give up when life kind of deals you a bad hand there, and to be an athletic freak and to do the things he does with one arm, playing a high level of college basketball for apparently a decent team in Austin Peay this year. It's special, man. And if you can't find some kind of like good feeling out of that, you may have like a cold black heart, because that is special what that kid is doing.
Yeah, that was I actually threw the clip on the House of College Hoops page. That was the one that kind of like got some traction with it. Yeah, I was watching that game, and it's like I saw him rip Colby King, and like when you just dribble into that coffin corner right up front of half court, where it's like you baseline's a defender, half court line, excuse me, defender. Yeah, and then he rips it, and then he just goes up with one hand, and the dude flew. He was gliding, like head looked like it was looking down at the rim. And it's like, okay, I have this clip and I can't tweet it out from my account because then I'll just look like an asshole. And I don't like that. But yeah, I mean, it's so hard not to feel good for him. The determination, as you mentioned, and they mentioned it a couple times on the broadcast. Like Cy Witt said he was playing with a broken hand last year. He's like, yeah, okay, my hand might be broken, but this guy is playing college basketball with one arm. If he's doing that, I can tough it out too. And you see the team around Austin Peay reflects that identity. Like they believe in each other. They believe in themselves. They're connected, and they're not afraid of anybody, and they're not going to give up. And they reflect that because I think in part of Hansel Emmanuel. So it is an awesome story. It's it is hard to deny. I could not agree more with what you said.
Bro, we know many people, like many people that have a hard time doing things with both hands. Yeah. And this kid is making it look easy with one. I'm just, what it reminds me of in a way, when I was playing hardcore, like men's league, I was playing 5 days a week, very competitive leagues. There was this one dude down here in my local league that was really tough. And I don't remember exactly what was wrong with him, but his right hand, was whatever that's called when it's just a little bit shorter, it's kind of limp or whatever. I'm not kidding, he was probably at 65% three-point shooter on like 15 attempts per game. I'd always ask him, how do you get the ball up? He was so comfortable in his own skin and was able to do it. And you admire people like that. They take whatever is perceived to us to be like a challenge or disability, whatever the word you want to use, and they turn it into a sort of strength. And it's amazing. How do you not root for this kid? Like Hansel Emmanuel, how do you not root for him? And that's a great story, and I'm glad he's getting his flowers. I know it came against your bulldog, but I'm glad he's getting his flowers. Peyton joins us finally, kind of waking up from a little deep coma. We're going to talk about that. We did go to the Louisville game, Peyton. We will talk about that, but good of you to join us today. How are you feeling so far?
I feel good. I'd feel better if it wasn't so gloomy outside. That's probably the reason I slept in. That, and I heard DeRosa was going to be in the show, so I was trying my hardest to miss the show as much as possible. So,
that's fair.
But no, I'm kidding. It's good to have DeRosa on. I'm excited to talk about some of these games. Not a good day for me last night. I'm pretty sure I didn't get to watch the final of the LSU Alabama football game, but last time I checked, we was getting our ass whooped 28-6. So not too happy about that. Yeah, not too happy about that. And obviously Louisville lost last night, but we'll get into all of that here later on in the show.
Hey, the one team we're about to talk about that did win, though, was Kansas. And I think that's a good place to start. What an incredible first weekend. We've bitched so many times in the 7 years that we've started this show and started this brand that the first week and a half of college basketball has traditionally not been great. Not only did we start off Monday with Baylor Gonzaga that I talked about with Coach on Friday's show, but this weekend we got incredible games. We got multiple top 25 matchups, and it began Friday night when number 1 in the ECB and AP poll, Kansas, hosted number 9 in the ECB poll, North Carolina, inside Phog Allen Fieldhouse. And what a game it turned out to be. You look at that first half, DeRosa, Kansas was phenomenal. I commented on it. I text Peyton about it. Kansas's on-ball screen, the way they defended ball screens and the way they defended dribble handoffs was a thing of beauty. Because when R.J. Davis would come off, especially R.J. Davis, come off a ball screen, you know he's a shooter, he can pull back, he can escape dribble. So they kept the guy high and tight on his hip. They played drop coverage, but they didn't sink so far. They played more of like a straight line drop, if that makes sense. I'd have to get up and kind of show you in tape. But they didn't drop as far, so he couldn't just blow by him or hit a little pull up. They funneled him, and they did the same thing with Elliot Cadeau, except for they didn't respect his shooting enough. So they trailed hard over the top, and then they sunk to make him make a decision. I thought Kansas's ball screen defense and dribble handoff defense was the story of that first half. And of course, they got to the rim. They made plays. KJ Adams was awesome, as kind of Coach and I predicted in that preview on Friday. But if we talk about the first half alone, Kansas looked the part of number one in every facet of the game. It was an impressive first 20 minutes from the Jayhawks.
100%. They looked the part of number one. I didn't watch a ton of this game live because it was at the same time as Butler Austin Peay. Butler Austin Peay started at 6:30. I believe this game started at 7. So I missed a decent chunk of this game. I did end up catching a little bit of like when Butler game was at halftime and then the ending, obviously. Yeah, but just it was on a second screen, so I was watching it very loosely, so I can't give as detailed analysis as you just gave. But I think the advantage in this game, just looking long term, is UNC doesn't really have an excellent big, and that was kind of exposed in this spot. Jalen Withers played a solid game, but Jalen Washington wasn't really able to guard Hunter Dickinson late, and it's just like Hunter Dickinson's so good. And Kansas ran this same set. I saw a couple times where they're like screening off to get Dickinson a look down low, and then he's just easily turning over his right shoulder.
Empty ball. It was an empty ball screen, almost like a floppy, where Dickinson sets the pick in the middle of the lane by the rim, and the guy pops out, and it would vary. Normally, it would probably be Zeke Mayo, if I remember right, would pop out, so you had to respect that. But as soon as he pops out and he sets the screen, Dickinson is sealing. So it was like an empty post seal. And Dickinson sealing, as soon as you get it, he's got position by the rim. You just make sure the pass is there and lead him, and he's got a dunker layup. Bill Self is the master of that. Peyton, we've talked about this for years. High-low action and getting bigs in great position on seals. There's nobody better in the country than Bill Self is designing sets for his big guys.
Yeah, that empty post seal is his favorite play. I'm pretty sure he runs, especially coming out of a timeout or in a late game, 4 minutes to go situation where we need a bucket. Just clear out both sides, give the ball to Hunter Dickinson down low. He's 7 foot tall, and nobody's going to be able to stop him. He has great hands, and he can finish out the rim with ease. We ran that play with our last bucket to go up 91 to 89 before the free throws. We ran that, and he got the ball down there and just too easy. Jalen Washington, I think it was guarding him, because I think Adam Lubman already fouled out at that point. You can't stop that. It's his favorite player to run. As far as Kansas goes in the first half, I thought we got out in transition. We ran. We scored about 16 points coming off of turnovers. We pressured their guards. RJ Davis, besides that early three he had on to start the game off when they went up 3-2 on us, he was pretty quiet. We kept him neutralized for the most part. Dwan Harris did a great job defending him. Elliot Cadeau did well. Ian Jackson did play pretty well in the first half. I think he was a big reason why that game didn't get too much out of hand, still within striking distance before the second half started. The biggest difference maker in the second half for me is Carolina got to the free throw line. They shot 17 free throws in the second half. They got Kansas in foul trouble. Hunter Dickinson had 4 fouls. Dwan Harris had 4 fouls. David Coit had 3 fouls. They got Kansas in foul trouble. Therefore, we weren't as aggressive on those pick and rolls as we were in the first half. So I think a lot of our guys were scared of getting that treacherous 5th foul and being out of the game. And they hit shots. Jalen Withers and Seth Trimble was huge in that second half. They got the ball down the court. They scored when they needed to. They hit big shots after big shots, and they clawed their way back in the game. So much so they even took the lead at one point. I think it was 89 to 87. They had the lead like 3 minutes ago. So hats off to North Carolina. They played as good as the game they needed to play, especially in that second half. And we need more home games. I love Champions Classic. It's been a great event to start the season off. But if you're telling me I can only have one, I can either have a Champions Classic to start the season off, I can have more home games. I 100% am picking more home games because they mean a lot more than these neutral site Champions Classic type of games, at least in my opinion. I love them. Great way to start the season.
I mean, it's not often we get to see North Carolina go inside Fall Gallon Fieldhouse. Not in the same conference. They have really no reason except for when they decide to schedule these games. And next year we will get Kansas heading over to the Dean Dome. And I'm with you. I think they're phenomenal. I like a neutral site game, but I think every power program needs to have at least one true home away series that they've scheduled outside of these neutral and outside of conference games, commitments or whatever. Because I just think they're a lot of fun, and I see a lot of benefits to get your team ready for the year ahead. DeRosa on that second half, I know you said you didn't get to watch as much because Butler was on, which makes sense, but Carolina found themselves down 20 at one point. They got it down, I think, to like 14 heading into halftime. They came out with a renewed focus, decided we have to speed this game up. Kansas, as Peyton mentioned, was the aggressor in transition. But North Carolina, when they decide to run, there's not many, if all teams historically, that run with North Carolina. And they got out in transition. And I thought Kansas's big flaw, for one, they weren't making the shots that they were in the first half. That doesn't help. But the other one is they weren't sprinting back no more. North Carolina was doing North Carolina things and getting the ball, outletting it ahead, speed rushing, their bigs running the floor, getting lobs, and then they got momentum. They started to feel themselves, and they got themselves back in the game. And to Peyton's point, they even tucked the lead a couple times there in the second half. That's who North Carolina is. And I tell you, the guy who I really thought sparked all this, Jalen Withers.
Yeah,
he ran to the corners. It didn't matter, left, right side corner, and he knocked a couple threes down. He went 3 of 5 from 3. Him knocking threes down and making Kansas have to respect his ass out on the corner opened up driving lanes for an RJ Davis, for an Elliot Cadeau, for Seth Trimble, who was phenomenal in the second half in this game. And that's how Carolina plays. If you get your big, especially your bigs like Jalen Withers, but if you get guys who run the floor, you start hitting some threes, now they're damn near impossible to try to slow down. And I think that's how Carolina got themselves back in this game.
Yeah, especially because, like, usually when you want to play post-up situations, Sands, like Arizona, likes to run and then post up quickly. But, like, other than that, most teams who want to post up, they're going to play a little bit slower at least. With this Carolina team, that's kind of their advantage, is the exact opposite. They want, look, Jalen Washington probably isn't like the biggest low post presence offensively or defensively, but he's going to get down court faster than Hunter Dickinson. You mentioned Jalen Withers. He's going to get down court faster than some opposing fours, stuff like that. And also, it wasn't allowing Kansas to get set and blitz those ball screens, as you were mentioning earlier, which allows for an Elliot Cadeau to get going, find guys, find driving lanes for RJ Davis. Seth Trimble, as you mentioned, it was phenomenal, 19 points, 10 and 10 from the free throw line. They were able to get in transition, draw fouls, and then make the game go from there, get back into their state, and then make Kansas have to still continue to fight. Because once you feel like you've put a team away, if they're able to make that punch back, it's kind of hard to like regain yourself and be like, no. This game isn't over. We have to wake up again. So I think it's impressive to get to that point, especially in a road game in a tough spot where you are outmatched at a particular position. But North Carolina still fought, and this was a team that North Carolina didn't look impressive in their debut, frankly. And then they have a bad first half, so it would be easy to kind of quit on yourself. But no, they didn't. They picked it up, and they showed why they were. I believe you said we had them top 10 in the ECB poll. They showed why they were that top 10 team.
Number 9. And that's a great point. I think 90 in that scenario when North Carolina rallies from down 20 and they take the lead, I would say a good 90% of teams in college basketball fold and allow North Carolina to run away with it. But we're talking about Kansas inside Fog Allen. They are able to get that second, third win because that crowd was phenomenal. I mean, I don't know why I'm surprised every time it happens, because we know Fog Allen is the best place, the best home court advantage in college basketball. But they showed a shot there late. I think it was like under 5 minutes ago, really tight ball game. Kansas had made a mini run, I think, to grab the lead again before Carolina ultimately got it one last time. And the crowd, it's not just the student section. It's you see everybody up and down, and they're showing decibel meters. It's 120, it's 121, loud enough to burst your eardrums. It's impressive, and I don't know why I'm surprised every time I see it. I think it's because it's such a shock. Because you look at other really great venues when they're loud. Like I've always said, Rupp Arena is a really good home court advantage when the people are engaged. It's a big game. But there's a lot of times what I call the blue hairs, the older people who've been going for decades, who have a lot of money. They're just grumpy and don't want to get up. Same with North Carolina. Same with a lot of these other places, right? But then you look at Kansas, and it don't matter if you're old, if you're in the student section, if whoever. You're bouncing. You are up and down, and that place is magical. It is magical, and I've got to get out there sometime.
That's a bucket list item for me, obviously. Even if I wasn't a Kansas fan, just being a college basketball fan, Allen Fieldhouse, the Fog is top of my bucket list to go there one game to watch, either as a fan or even as an analyst. That'd be awesome. But speaking of Fog Allen, there's one funny A little tidbit I found on Twitter a couple days, a little bit after the game was over. I think we was on our way yesterday to the Louisville Tennessee game. I looked on Twitter and some people was asking Carolina fans who were the attendance at this game, how was their experience? And they said, well, it's somewhat similar to Duke, except you ain't got all those Duke dipshits over there. I started laughing. But
yeah, something like that. I said nerds. Except it's like Duke without the nerds. Yeah.
Yeah. But dude, flowers go to Zeke Mayo. Hometown kid, transfers in from South Dakota State. I mean, this kid's unreal. 21 points, 7-14 from the field. He had like 3 threes in a row in the first half, and that's all his threes he hit. Even when he went a little bit quiet, a little bit cold in the second half, he was still shooting. He was still getting his mid-range game going. He hit some big-time free throws late in the stretch. Played great defense on that last possession there when him and Hunter Dickinson was guarding. I don't know if it was Cadeau. I don't know if it was Cadeau or R.J. Davis or whoever it was, but great defense there late in the stretch. He was incredible. I thought Kansas bigs. Obviously, Hunter Dickinson was awesome. KJ Adams played really well, but Flory Bandunga, freshman coming in, right away, he made an impact off the bench. He was awesome. Very happy with how Kansas played. And this is a Kansas team that Bill Self wanted last year, but now he has this year. And that's a national title type of team.
Well, I want to make a couple points just real quick before we move on. We didn't even say the score. Kansas wins 92-89, by the way. Flory Bandunga. That kid is growing to be a monster as a sophomore DeRosa. He's getting to play behind a potential All-American Hunter Dickinson, so his minutes aren't going to be great. But in 11 minutes against North Carolina, and his first real national exposure, he gives them 8 points, 8 rebounds, 1 block. This kid is setting himself up to have a monster breakout, maybe the guy for Kansas as a sophomore in year 2. He's an athletic freak. He plays above the rim. He's got great shot blocking instincts. I mean, I think he's the future. He's the next great Kansas big that's about to come to that program. And you're seeing little flashes and limited minutes already as a freshman. The other guy I want to mention from Kansas real quick, I want to ask you if cause for concern. Riley Griffin's got off to a slow start. Played 16 minutes in this game, 6 points, hit 2 threes. I think they both came in the first half. Very quiet in the second half. He's not off, and it's 2 games. I know. Don't freak out. But he's not necessarily off to the start that many of us expected coming off of a Final Four team in Alabama where he was probably the main 3-point source for that team. So kind of any of your thoughts on that? Are you worried about Riley Griffin fitting in this lineup, or is it just a slow start? And then thoughts on Flory Bandunga?
Yeah, Flory first, because I remember watching him a little bit in high school. Just so explosive.
Kokomo. Shout out Kokomo High School.
Yeah. Like, you just see the explosiveness. You see his athleticism. He's going to be a star one day. You hit all the nails on the head. I just wanted to reiterate that point. But with Griffin, I don't know if I'm super concerned. Like, just at least because of the depth on this Kansas team, I don't know if I'm concerned from a Kansas perspective. Maybe Griffin doesn't fit in the puzzle, but if he doesn't, they still have AJ Storr. You still have Zeke Mayo. You still have David Coit, who are able to pick up in, like, August. That, like, I feel like Kansas will be fine. Maybe Griffin doesn't get going, but also – I just imagine he's a talented player. You mentioned how good a 3-point shooter he was at Alabama. I feel like eventually he'll find a spot at Kansas, but if he doesn't, I also don't think it's like end of the world situation.
One last thing. First of all, we see our guy Connor McCabe here. He says, I was surprised on how good our bench is, and there's really no worry for me if a guy like Adams is injured. There's somebody step up next. Point guard is my only concern due to depth right now. Listen, I think guards are fine. I would worry if KJ Adams went down.
Yeah,
he's the one guy on this team that you can't replace because of the athleticism, the size. He does things as a 4-man. He's not a great shooter, but he's got all of a sudden now where he can hit from 15 feet, and it seems like it's money. Sometimes falls in love with it a little too much, but he does things that nobody else in that roster can do. I think if you told me Kansas has to lose one position, right? You got to lose a guard or you got to lose KJ Adams. You better keep KJ. If you lose KJ, I think you're going to see the dynamic of this team change a little bit.
Yeah.
He's that important to him. One last person on this roster or on North Carolina, Cade Tyson played 1 minute. I remember his recruitment in the portal coming up from Belmont, like a 45% 3-point shooter, 6'7". Everybody thought he could be kind of that guy that's like the big wing dude that can really shoot and stretch the floor. Played 1 minute in this game. Any cause for concern? I don't think he's been off to the start that many thought he would be coming out of the portal from Belmont.
I would. I think Belmont, it would be kind of hard for him to fit in defensively here. I think, he can shoot, but I think kind of everything else was the worry. And it's clear that, at least with him not playing, my assumption is, not 100% certain, obviously, but my assumption is that those areas of his game haven't picked up and that he still is kind of slow. And then Jalen Withers, especially if he's hitting shots, I don't think Tyson's going to get off the bench much. And it made them bring in Van Allen Lubin, and it made them even bring in Tejon Claude in August again, that they were looking for holes to fill in the front court. So that could probably also tell you that Tyson's a little bit behind. So, I am actually concerned there. I don't know if he's going to break into the rotation.
Great game. Great start to the college basketball season. Two blue blood, the true definition of blue bloods, top 10 matchup playing each other in their home venue. The return legs next year where Kansas will go to the Dean Dome. Love these matchups, to Peyton's point. And when we do our top 25, I'll send the ballots out after the show for the new top 25. I don't think there's any possible reason, especially since they got themselves back in it and had a chance to win it there at the end. I don't think North Carolina should drop it all. I think, full disclosure, my ballot, I'll probably keep them. I don't think you drop them off of a performance like that. I just don't. But that's me. Let's talk about the game we were at, Peyton. We went down to Louisville, to the KFC Yum Center yesterday to watch Louisville play a top 15 team in Tennessee. We have them 12th in the ECB poll, in a game that we all thought that maybe this is the official kind of coming back party, rising from the dead, letting the nation know that they are back. And it just did not turn out to be like that. First of all, I want to give credit to the crowd. They got a lot of shit for night one. Maybe not as many people as there should have been, or people thought there would have been. I defended them, right? Because this is a fan base, as you would know well, that's been battered, beaten, and broken over the last decade. They showed up yesterday. We got there right before tip. That place was jumping. I've got videos. I think I posted it from our official Twitter. It was loud and raucous. Wasn't a complete sellout, but I would say a good 90% full. And they had the towels, the whiteout. The crowd did their part. So you got to give Louisville fans a lot of credit for this. But we're talking about gameplay and strategy and all that. It's clear that Pat Kelsey wants his team up and down the floor. They want them shooting a bunch of threes, which they did. But when they're not hitting, they were at one point, I think in the first half, 5 of 24 from three?
Yeah, like it was not pretty.
Or no, maybe that's what they ended, was 5 of 24. It wasn't great.
It was 3 of 17.
Okay, that's what it was. It wasn't great. And they went 16 of 60 from the floor. They could not buy a bucket. I don't care who you are, especially against a Tennessee team who's tough and physical and controls the pace. If you don't hit shots, you're not going to beat many teams. I thought Tennessee was good. I don't buy Tennessee still, and I'll tell you why after hearing your guys' thoughts. But Louisville, not a great performance. Obviously wasn't ready for the moment yesterday. But I will say this for Louisville fans. There were things in that game that I liked what I saw. They got good looks. They just didn't hit. This team will be fine. I think this team is still an NCAA tournament team, despite the ass whooping 77-55 to a top 15 team yesterday.
Yeah, just looking at the stats here. A game like this early in the year, second game, your first time, basically, your first big game with a new team, all these transfers, a complete roster rehaul, new coaches coming into the program. Even if it is at the Yum Center, yes, the Yum Center was rocking. About 17,000 people were in attendance. The largest crowd in November in the last 7 years. I seen that on Twitter as a fact. The Yum Center was rocking. There's a lot of optimism, a lot of excitement heading into this game. But Tennessee, 53% from the three-point line, 10 of 19. They ended up having 20 turnovers. We forced a lot of turnovers. With that, I'm very, very happy with. They dominated the rebounding battle, though. 40 rebounds total for Tennessee compared to 26 for us. That's a 14 difference. And they just destroyed us in the paint. 40 points in the paint compared to our 10. And Chaz Lanier and Zakai Ziegler combined for 38 points. In a game like that early in the season, when you're playing against a Tennessee squad who is that physical and has two guards who can go out there and get you almost 20 in this game, which they pretty much did, it's hard to win games like that. We did show spurts in this game where we made a run At the end of the first half, we went on a 10-2 run to cut the lead down to, I think, 12 heading into halftime. 14 heading into halftime, excuse me. And the second half, like we didn't start the second half too well, but we did go on another one there late when we got the game under 10 points. And then fucking Zakai Ziegler. We played amazing defense. Great defense. As good as defense you can possibly ask for. Play the entire game. 1 second left. This dude hits a logo 3-pointer shot.
Yeah.
Just kills all of them. Kills all of them momentum. That shot, they end up going on to a 22-5 run to end the game. That shot killed anything we had left. That killed all of the momentum. Because if we get that game under 2 possessions before the 8-minute mark, who knows what happens after that? Because the Youngstown would have been crazy. You could already hear my voice. I was already screaming at that point. And God forbid, if we would have came back and won that game, there's no way in hell I'd be able to do today's show. Because I'd have lost my voice completely. But I did. I mean, there's a lot of things you can go off this game. It's tough to win a game like this early on the season. I would like a rematch and possible sometime later on the season. Maybe if we can make the NCAA tournament, I would love that. Because I do think we put up a better chance if we can get more time under our belt, learn from these mistakes. But Tennessee, I don't buy them as a great offensive team. I don't think they're going to hit 53% from the 3-point line like that again. I don't think that's in their DNA. But their defense is always good. They're always tough. They're always physical. And with that makes them always a top 15 team in the country.
DeRosa, if I would have told you 2 years ago, or even especially 3 years ago as a freshman, if I would have told you 2 years ago this guy would be the guy that killed every Louisville run with his shot making, not defense, not assist making, not play making, his shot making, there's no way in hell you would have believed me.
Yeah, 100%. He's that old school New York City kind of guard. And those guards usually, they don't have an excellent jump shot. They're usually getting to the rim, facilitating, being annoying as hell defensively. But no, he was hitting shots. He was just kind of excellent later in that game. He definitely started slow. You mentioned, Peyton just mentioned it in our chat, 11 turnovers. Like, not a great game. But once he kind of got going late in the game, he had an answer to any time Louisville was about to go on a run. It was just Ziegler would punch back. Then Louisville does a little more. Ziegler punches back. Just keeps you at distance. And eventually, you're just not going to be able to break through. He was excellent in this game. He really picked it up late. And quite frankly, I kind of thought Louisville's a little overrated entering the season. I feel like people were talking about them as a top 25 team. I thought that was too much. I think it's going to take a little bit of time, especially because so many new players. I mean, this entire team is new. These guys don't yet know how to play with each other. And against a real test in Tennessee, I thought this was a really tough spot for Louisville, and it proved to be even tougher than I expected. And you got a bad game out of Terrence Edwards. I think he is awesome. I think you're not going to get many games and he shoots 2 of 12. Like, he's an excellent player. He's going to be better as the year goes on. And I think Louisville gets better as the year goes on. But yeah, Ziegler was awesome. I mean, excellent. He looks like one of the best guards in the SEC. And it's just going to be tough to beat Tennessee when they're hitting shots. 10 and 19 from three, as Peyton mentioned. Good luck beating them.
Well, when Louisville only makes 16 of 60 from the floor, like I said at the beginning, you're not going to beat too many teams. And this is another one of these games, though. If it's the roles are reversed and Louisville hits their shots, this is obviously not a 22-point game, and I think Louisville has a chance at the end to win it. Like, I don't think Tennessee – it's crazy, and I know Tennessee fans – our friend over there, Dallas Bolin, over at the All Call Vol show, is probably going to rip my ass for this, but Tennessee so reliant on 2 guards to make all their plays. They play a slow down game. They control the tempo. They do what Tennessee does historically under Rick Barnes, and they do what they want. Very hard to beat. They rely on defense first. But when it comes to offense, if Zakai Ziegler is not making those shots, I wasn't overly impressed with Chaz Lanier in person. He made some really good shots. I just don't buy it. I think they're more of a team that's going to get you low 70s per night and just hope that they can shut the other team's water valve off on the offensive end. Wasn't particularly impressed with their schematics offensively. They run their stuff, they control clock, but how many times are they going to play teams that they get late in the shot clock like that and they can't make a shot? They're in trouble if they play behind. They're not built to play from behind. You play more of these athletic shooting teams in the SEC, they could be some very long nights if they don't kind of up their or keep the type of offensive pace. And I don't buy that they will throughout the course of the year. Defense, elite. Absolutely elite. Toughness, elite. All the hallmarks of Rick Barnes teams, they're elite at. The offense, man. I mean, Jemai Mashuk had 3 points in this game. He took 4 shots. That's it. 4 shots. And he's a dude that I thought coming into the year that could be like a 12, 13-point scorer per game. And he still may be very early. But everything goes through Zakai Ziegler and Chaz Lanier. That's it. Felix Okpara got his 10 points late when Louisville was just kind of throwing in the white flag. And he dominated offensive rebounds and got some putbacks and all that. Igor Milicic, kind of quiet, 7 points, 2 rebounds, didn't really do much. It's literally the 2 guards for Tennessee. If they play well, they're probably going to win. If not, especially if they go behind, I think they're in a lot of trouble this year because I don't think they have the offensive firepower. Excuse me. Louisville, last thing on them. Ryan Smith got 18. They all pretty much came in the second half. He couldn't buy a bucket. Every time he would miss, he would fade away. I felt Tennessee's pressure more than anything sped Louisville up. They sped him up because Ryan Smith's a really great 3-point shooter. And even when he was open, he was trying to get it off quick and was leaning back instead of going vertical straight up and down in his normal form because I think he felt that kind of boogeyman pressure that, oh, shit, I better get this off before Tennessee gets a guy on me and be physical with me. Corin Johnson was invisible this game. Noah Waterman hit some big threes during their runs, but he only had 10 in this game. We talked about Terrence Edwards. Louisville, the one thing offensively I didn't like from them is they settled for way too many kick-out threes. Way too many. Even when they would get by. Tennessee played gaps. They shrunk the floor. It was hard to get middle drives on them, but there was times Louisville had middle drives, got penetration off of a ball screen or just beat your man 1v1, and they would get to the rim. And, there would be Felix Okpara there or Igor Milicic or whoever. And they would try to force a kick out, or they would do the baseline hammer action where you go baseline, try to hammer it to the corner, and it wasn't there. Just go up. Either force a foul, make a bucket, or get your shot blocked. It's okay. It's not the worst if you get your shot blocked. Be aggressive. I thought Peyton, they settled way too much for trying to kick it out. And I think it's a lot to do with Tennessee's pressure got in their head. But that's something going forward later on in the year. Here in a couple weeks when we play Indiana, who's going to be very good defensively and very big and physical. They've got to attack the rim, at least make it a threat. Then those hammer actions and the kickouts will be there. Stop settling so much.
Real quick to jump in before Peyton. Indiana's losing right now. They're down 35-32 last I checked to Eastern Illinois. Peyton, you can go now.
Well, Indiana's a football school now. I don't know if you guys know that. They're currently 10-0 in football, so they're a football school now. But no, all jokes aside, I just don't think Louisville was aggressive enough. And I didn't like our starting lineup to start the game. I thought we should have started Rain Smith to start the game and maybe Noah Waterman, just go a little bit more of an offensive-minded lineup. But maybe it would have made us start the game off a little bit better than what we did, not be so damn stiff and slow to start the game off. But the one player that I was extremely disappointed with was Kason Pryor. 6 points, 1 of 7 from the field.
Took a lot of bad shots, too.
He had more turnovers than he did rebounds. 3 turnovers, 2 rebounds. When we get into ACC play, you're big. You can't be having 2 rebounds. You're going to need to clean up the glass a lot more than he did in this game. And he looked lost out there. Defensively, he wasn't great. He wasn't hitting shots at all. He hit 1 shot. I'm pretty sure that was a layup late in the game. But, yeah, he did not look good. Was not too impressed with him. But good thing is, these types of games can either make or break your season. Luckily, it's so early in the season. Hopefully, we can learn from this. And we still got big games left. We got Indiana coming up in a couple weeks for the Maui Invitational. So we'll see how
Battle for
Atlantis. I knew it was one of those. I can't remember. Battle for Atlantis. We got a lot of good games left in the rest of the season. So hopefully we can learn from this and we can get 1 or 2 of these games on our resume because we want to make the NCAA tournament. We're going to have to win some big games.
Real quick, last point on that. He brought up Kason Pryor. That's the downside of these unicorn newer types in college basketball. The 6'10", 7-footers who are versatile, that can play point forward for you, that can shoot threes. The downside of that is they get comfortable playing on the perimeter and they lose their physicality, DeRosa, where Kason Pryor needed to get his nose in there and be physical, get rebounds as well as play on the perimeter. He focused way too much on being kind of that flashy unicorn on the perimeter. he's still got to be 6'10" and go inside and do some dirty work as well. That's the downside of this unicorn type.
100%. Those, you need someone to set a tone, and usually sometimes you look to your bigs. If your bigs kind of that unicorn type, they're not going to be able to set the tone. And I watched that USF team a lot last year. Of the 3 big transfers, Youngblood, Miguel, Pryor was the one who impressed me the least when I watched him play. Just like he was able to hit shots and like able to space the floor, which really helped them run their offense. It helped Youngblood and Miguel both get downhill and be kind of those physical players that really, really picked up with that team as they got going later in the season. But yeah, I don't know. Miguel was never, Pryor was never a guy I really fell in love with. You definitely see the skill. You see his jump shooting ability. You see the fact that he can't handle the ball, but yeah, he was never a guy I was really in love with. So I was always more intrigued with the fit. I was a little lower on it than most, and I hope he gets going in the season. I mean, he's a fun player to watch when he's going, but I think it's going to be tougher, especially against a different caliber of athlete in the ACC, against guys who have seen the unicorn types before, where maybe some teams in the American really haven't.
I will say this, he will be a guy that wins Louisville a game or two this year because he goes off. He will be the guy. If they beat Duke in the Yum Center this year, he'll be the guy probably having to guard Cooper Flagg. He'll be the guy, though, that will also give him 22 and 9 or some crazy number and win a game for him. So
good luck giving Cooper Flagg 22 and 9. That dude is elite defensively.
Well, we're going to talk about Cooper coming up. But Louisville fans, stay with this team. I think you've got a really fun team. I think it should be a tournament team. Get back invested because Pat Kelsey will get them back. They are going to win games. It just wasn't yesterday. That's a really tough opponent. They're better than what they showed. Stick with them. I promise you, you'll enjoy it. Let's go down to Dallas last night. Another top 15 matchup. Number 8 in the ECB poll, Baylor against number 15, Arkansas. In Dallas, right there, where the Dallas Mavericks play. What's that called? American Airlines Arena or Center or whatever it's called?
Yes, that's right.
Whatever it's called. The home that Luka built. Or actually the home that Dirk built. Really fun matchup. Baylor got their ass beat on Monday night in Seattle. Kudos to them to playing 2 very tough opponents to open the year up back-to-back on neutral site games. And I thought we knew Baylor was not as bad as the 38-point ass whooping they got. Gonzaga is just that good. Baylor lacked size, all that. But I tell you what, they responded in kind last night against the Razorbacks. Scott Drew did exactly what me and Coach Parrott talked about that we thought that they would do. The one thing that we thought would kill Arkansas this year is outside shooting. We figured Baylor would mix zone in. Not only they mixed it in, they went zone the whole game with this kind of, they called it the amoeba zone, but it was like a 2-3, 1-1-3, 1-3-1 hybrid, sometimes matching up out of it. And it was beautiful scheming from Scott Drew. I thought Baylor looked pretty good. I won't say great, but they looked pretty good. They got balanced scoring. They had 5 guys in double figures. Jaden Nunn led the way with 16. And they threw Arkansas up. The one thing we said, I wrote about in the magazine, I've talked about in SEC previews, we've all personally talked about it. This is not a great shooting team. And to go zone and dare them to shoot and settle was chef's kiss because I thought Baylor really had a great showing for themselves. Your guys' thoughts on this? Baylor wins 72-67 in a game that they pretty much controlled the whole way.
Go ahead, Dr. Dorsey.
Yeah, I'll lead this off. That zone, we saw it a little bit against Gonzaga, and it just didn't look great. And they weren't in the same. The guys weren't on the same page. It's definitely something they practiced a little bit this week. How much you can change in that practice, we don't know. But another thing is, Gonzaga has excellent shooters from the outside, and their bigs are incredible passers. They just know how to get guys in the right spots.
3, few actually runs good zone offense where he flashes a guy middle, they overload a side. Arkansas didn't do that.
Yeah, they didn't. And also, it's kind of hard to teach a team the zone offense, the intricacies of that. I watched a mid-major game. It was Central Michigan playing Stony Brook. And Stony Brook ends up switching zone, and Central Michigan had no idea what to do. Absolutely no idea. Arkansas wasn't in that same spot, but they were very clearly out of sort.
Can I, real quick on that, and I'll let you get back to your point. Can I give you the connection there? This won't surprise you. Arkansas didn't know anything to do with the zone. Do you know who Central Michigan's coach is?
Tony Barbie, right?
Do you know who he played for and coached under? That answers all you need to know right there.
Makes sense. I mean, they were up like 15, and I'm watching that game. I had Central Michigan on the side because I like that team this year, and they just had they were running around like a chicken with their head cut off. But that makes sense. It makes sense. And just Arkansas didn't really have an answer to it. And on the bench side, offensively, I was impressed with Rob Wright, freshman off the bench, 17 minutes. We were talking about Flory and how he's going to take a jump next year, maybe even look like a pro. I think Rob Wright is showing the same flashes, but kind of looks like that 4-year college guard that maybe in ECB year 9, year 10, you're coming on here and talking about how that kid had the Zakai Ziegler game. I think he looked excellent. I think he looks like the truth in the future. But you mentioned it. And with Arkansas, I want to talk about him first because I know we had a little bit of an argument with him over the summer. Adu Thiero was awesome in this game. If he doesn't play as well as he did, I don't think this game's within 15 points. He was spectacular.
They get blown out. Arkansas is destroyed if a dude doesn't go for 24.
Yep. And I mean, he was good defensively too. Like he's on VJ Edgecombe, and Edgecombe is awesome, but he had another bad game. And I think Edgecombe will prove down the line how good he is, and you will look back on this performance defensively from Thiero, and you'll be like, okay, yeah, this kid had just a spectacular game.
Well, no, that's a good point. I mean, again, similar to Zakai, if I'd have told you 2 years ago as a freshman, Adu Thiero can make threes and he's attacking the rim and hitting his little mid-range pull-ups and floaters, you would have laughed at me.
Yep.
We would have laughed at each other. But you saw spurts last year. And that fun Kentucky offense, he would hit a corner three, he'd get downhill and dunk on somebody. And now he's taking it to the next level. Like, he is another one of those weird – he's not 7 foot, but he's like a unicorn in the aspect that – what is he? He is 6'8" now. 6'8", but plays like a guard still. Athletic, plays way above the rim, and he's allowed himself to get more physical. He gets in for rebounds. Tremendous defender. I mean, he carried him 24 points. And to your point, if he doesn't go off yesterday, this is a 25, 30-point ass whipping by Baylor. Yeah. Like, Arkansas may not even score 50 in this game. He carried them. Only Arkansas had 2 guys in double figures. Adu with 24, Boogie Flame with 17, and if we're being honest, Boogie's came late. He had a big 3 to cut the lead to 2 at one point there with like 50 seconds to go. But there's no balance from Arkansas. And you could say, well, it's the zone. They didn't work on it. But whose fault is that?
Yeah.
Like, whose fault that they didn't – Cal said in the postgame that, oh, yeah, we've got zone offense. But it's the same thing. He refuses. Now, last year is like obviously a unicorn in that aspect because the offense was so fun at Kentucky. But historically, Cal, against zone teams, he doesn't try to attack the middle till late. Like, they did not put – I was watching this. In the first half against the zone, they flashed nobody middle. I don't think one possession they flashed anybody middle to try to break the defense and then overload like we're talking about. They played a guy in a dunker spot. They played a guy in a corner. They played basically 3 guards up high and passed the ball around. How do you not flash the middle? We were taught this in elementary school against the zone. Flash middle, turn, and look. They finally started doing the second half a little bit. I think one time they got it to John L. Davis in the middle. He made a little something happen. I think they got it to Carter Knox one time. He made a little something happen, or at least tried to. But how do you not flash? Also, I'm worried about my guy Big Z. 2 points in this game, 17 minutes, 5 rebounds. He had 1 block. Cal's insistence on taking this dude who is a Euro-style player at 7'2". We talk about unicorns. That's the theme of the day. He is not a back-to-the-basket traditional 7'2" guy at 245 pounds. He may be 245, but he looks thin as a spaghetti. Let me try that again. He looks as thin as a spaghetti noodle. He's not physical. Stop playing him back to the basket. He is a dude. I hate to bring this up, but DeRosa, I know you're going to agree, and Peyton, I think you will too. If Big Z stays and plays in that Mark Pope offense where he can utilize his passing ability, where he can stretch the floor, where we're going to shoot a bunch of threes, Big Z would be a dude who averaged probably 14, 15 a game. In this Arkansas offense, you may get games where he gets you 12, 15, 17 points, but you're probably going to have a lot of games like this against more physical opponents. He's not a back-to-the-basket dude. He should have been the dude in the middle of that zone with his passing ability. Throw it up high, let him turn, make a decision to shooters. I don't like how this is potentially going for our guy Big Z this year. That's all I'm going to say about that.
I'm going to jump in real quick one more time. Look at what Pope did with Ali Khalifa. He's doing that with Khalifa. He can do that with Big Z.
Yep.
Completely agree.
You took my point with Big Z because I was about to mention the same thing. I just think it's funny that, and I know that a lot of now Arkansas fans probably going to think we're just shitting on Cal, but I'm really not trying to. But I just think it's funny that in the game against Kansas, in the exhibition game, Big Z had like almost 15 points. He had like 4 threes, but he did not play. He played like 2 possessions, I think, in the paint back to back. But most of the times he's playing outside towards the 3-point line in the mid-range, hitting shots, getting open, getting his teammates involved. And that was in the game that doesn't fucking matter. But now these games that do matter, now he's going back to the paint. You're trying to play him back to the basket where that's not his forte. Get him to the 3-point line. Let him shoot some shots because he's capable of hitting it. If they're running the zone, put him in the middle because he's 7'2". He can see over above everybody. Allow him to make the plays because he's that capable of a dude. And if you don't, you'll have a game where he'll play 17 minutes, have 2 points, 0 of 3 from the field, 3 rebounds as a guy who's 7'2", by the way, and 3 fouls. Like that's, I don't really get the game plan today by Coach Cal, but I'm glad Baylor won this game because I'm still high on Baylor. I still think they got an electrifying backcourt with Roach, Jaden Nunn, and VJ Edgecombe. And Norchad Omier had a double-double in this game. He played awesome.
He was awesome in this game.
I'm really happy that Baylor won this game because I know one of our buddies, Jonathan Warner, who does bracketology stuff, he's posted Baylor as one of his first Friday frauds. I don't think they're a fraud. I just think Gonzaga's that fucking good. Yep. And they exposed everything that Baylor was weak at, basically, and that was basically the front court. So happy Baylor won this game. They led the entire game, did not trail at all. Don't sell on Baylor yet because I still think they have a legitimate chance to make a run in March and definitely in the Big 12.
Arkansas through 2 games, 9 of 39 from 3. Are we surprised at all? Because I'm sure in the hell not. 9 of 39 from 3 in 2 games. They went 4 of 19 against Lipscomb, 5 of 20 against Baylor last night in Dallas. I've said it. Arkansas people are mad. They're very talented. They will win games. They're going to get 20 wins, maybe 25. But when it comes March and the games tighten up and you got to hit shots on those tight-ass rims, I don't trust them. If you get them in transition and they can play good D, because I will say I thought their defense through the first 2 games has been solid. I mean, Baylor is a team that could potentially give you 90. They held them to 72. I think Arkansas is going to be a much better defensive team this year, more the mold of what Cal teams traditionally are than the last couple of years at Kentucky. But, man, I don't see how they score the ball outside of Adu Thiero and Boogie Fland. And I worry about a guy like Nelly Davis. He took 9 shots. I'm sorry. He took 7 shots. 2 of 4 from inside 3-point line, 0 of 5 from 3, 8 points. He is not getting shots. He's not getting the ball like he only played 21 minutes in this game. Nelly Davis coming in as the number 1 transfer portal guy was expected to be the big-time scorer, and he still may be. I know it's early. But I just, in this lineup, where it's dominated by Boogie Fland, DJ Wagner on the ball, Adu Thiero creating stuff off the ball with cutting to the rim and all the stuff he can do, where's the shots from Nelly Davis coming from, and does it flow into what Arkansas tries to do with dribble drives and DHOs and all that? If Nelly Davis doesn't pick his production up, I'm selling Arkansas even more because he's got to be that guy for him, and right now he's not. I don't trust Arkansas. Until they prove me otherwise, fellas, I don't trust Arkansas at all.
Yeah, you gave the note on Nelly Davis. Like when you said the 9 of 39 from 3 in the 2 games, my first thought was, okay, what's John L. Davis shooting? And then, like, if he's not shooting really well, I know that's going to get better. I know he can shoot it. Like he proved that the last couple of years at FAU. But you mentioned it with the guards. That wasn't actually something I had thought about until you just said it. I think it's a good point because Nelly Davis was doing a lot with the ball in his hands at FAU. Like he averaged almost 3 assists a game last year. He had the ball in his hands a lot. He was able to create a little bit and kind of play off some of their other guards too. Yeah, he's not doing that at Arkansas. So the fit is weird. And then you're running 3 guys in the backcourt who aren't the biggest dudes, all things considered. Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Peyton, you got any last things on Baylor or Arkansas before we move on?
Arkansas can't shoot the ball, and until, like you mentioned, until they prove me wrong, I just don't think Arkansas is going to do particularly well, especially on the road. I don't think they're going to win a lot of these games on the road if they don't hit the shots. And Boogie Fland, like, he's a phenomenal player. He had 17 points in this game, but he was not efficient. 5 of 13 from the field. He had 5 rebounds, 7 assists, but that's good. He didn't commit a single turnover, but that's good. But I do think he needs to be a little more efficient. And like DeRosa mentioned earlier, if they didn't have Adu Fierro in this game, if he didn't play as well as he did, this game's not even remotely close. So I think Arkansas has some kinks they need to work out, and shot making is one of them.
Let's move on. In the state of Texas, the big one late last night. Number 10, Auburn, 74. Number 3, Houston, 69. Incredible college basketball game. Probably the best game we've seen in week 1 of the slate. 2 very physical teams, number 1 and number 2 in KenPom heading into this game, going at each other. And, fellas, how good. Go read the ECB magazine. Here's another plug, because your boy wrote about him in the Auburn preview. Tahad Pettiford. I watched tape from this kid as a freshman. I said if there's anybody in the country that could have a Rob Dillingham-like effect this year in college basketball, it would be Tahad Pettiford. Electric, shifty, can go get his own. And what he did against the number 1 defense in college basketball, gave him 21 points, 5 of 8 from 3. And what was it, DeRosa? Had like a 4-minute stretch where he made everything. Everything. Yeah. That kid, he makes me look like a genius right now for making the comparison to Rob Dillingham. But if he's that good, you pair getting that 20 points from Johni Broome, man, Auburn is a wagon right now. And let's talk real quick, too, about the controversy heading in. So the team plane leaves Friday night to go to Houston, and the report comes out halfway there, 45 minutes in, they had to reroute and come back because of an altercation. Turns out it was freshman Ja'Kai Howard and who was the other one?
Jaheim Hudson, SMU transfer.
Jaheim Hudson. Yeah. Got into some kind of fight. They got left home. We'll talk about that here in just a second. But DeRosa, Peyton, Auburn, I think they're the real deal, man. I think they've got a star in the backcourt. They've got complimentary players. They play tough. I mean, they went and out-toughed Houston in their backyard. And they've got an All-American in Johni Broome. This is a team Bruce Pearl is built to really make it here.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they went into Houston did that's remarkable. I mean, nobody can really say that in the same sentence. Like, you went at Houston, out-toughed them. Like, what the fuck? This Auburn team's legit. Pettiford was incredible. Johni Broome had a very, very good 20-point game, 10 to 15 from the field. Almost had a double-double. He was in foul trouble, had 4 turnovers, but he was awesome. This team is just really talented. They got depth, which is something that Houston does not have. Houston's problem this year is they do not have depth like they did last year. And if LJ Cryer doesn't really hit shots, he was very inefficient, 13 points, 5 of 14 from the field. They was in foul trouble as well. Uzan fouled out. Roberts and LJ Cryer both had 4 fouls. Tuglu came off the bench. He was the only guy really who get anything. Worthy coming off the bench for Houston had 4 fouls. Auburn just went in there and just beat the shit out of them. They did what Houston does to most teams. And they did it better. And they went in there and just beat the shit out of them like they needed to do. They did not shoot the ball particularly well from 3, which Houston did, which is really weird to even think about. That Houston shot 38% from 3, and they still lost the game in their home backcourt. That's Auburn team's legit. They have a legitimate chance to take that top spot away from Alabama, especially since Alabama has not particularly looked that good early in the season.
Well, DeRosa, has anybody been more affected by a loss of a player than maybe Houston losing Jamal Shead? Because that's a game last night. Jamal Shead, as a veteran, would have calmed it down, made the big plays, big shots, just really be a coach on the floor. And they didn't have him last night, and I think it hurt him.
100%. You need that floor general point guard type, and that was Jamal Shead. I mean, he was maybe the best guard in college basketball last year. He was definitely up there.
There's an argument. Yeah, there's an argument to be made. Yep, for sure.
Yeah, like he was awesome, and they just were missing that guy this year. And then to factor it in another level, Auburn wasn't afraid of Houston. They were willing to play the dirty game against Houston, which not many teams are able to do. Auburn is. And that's just kind of one of the things that I really liked about this Auburn team last year, why I picked them to go too far in the tournament, and why I like them again this year. It's just they have that toughness to them. And if you're getting that game out of Todd Pettiford off the bench, you mentioned it, Josh. That dude was incredible last night. He was awesome. I mean, special. And you wrote about him in the ECB magazine, full hat tip there. He was awesome. He showed you everything he could. And I mean, aside from Janae Broom, where you're always going to get a game of Janae Broom, full disclosure, I bet him to win National Player of the Year at like 50-1. So I'm Janae Broom stand here. Yeah. And you weren't really getting anything out of anyone aside from Janae Broom. Chaney Johnson had a good game, but I remember he went for one tomahawk dunk and it hit off the back rim. So it's like, okay, there you still needed some momentum. And that came from freshman Todd Pettiford against probably what we projected to be entering the season, the best defense in the country. He was excellent. Everything.
Shout out to our Auburn people over on the Facebook group, Don Lucas and company, for their Tigers, because, man, you didn't get really much out of Miles Kelly, the Georgia Tech transfer. After a night one where they beat the hell out of Vermont, he went 7 of 9 from 3. He had 5 points in this game. You know he's a better scorer than what he showed last night. So you add in that. You add in that you really didn't get much out of J.P. Pegues, Dylan Cardwell. Chad Baker-Mazara hit a couple big shots late, give him 7 points. Denver Jones didn't make a 3, only took 2 of them for 4 points. Those guys are better than what they showed. If you can get all those dudes kind of firing at the same time, dude, Auburn is a handful. And the other thing I want to say on Auburn, if you're an Auburn fan, that you will love this. You were down in the second half with 14:40 left to Houston, 41-32. That's danger zone against a Houston team that normally pulls away with their defense and toughness. And all of a sudden it's a 9-point game 1 minute, and then you make a couple mistakes and it's a 25-point game. Yep. They came back from 9 down to take the lead and end up winning a game and just outfought Houston. All good signs if you're an Auburn Tiger fan right now. And, man, this looks like one of the best 3 teams in the country at the moment through the first week of college basketball. Real quick on the fight, the skirmish, the horseplay, whatever the hell you want to call it. DeRosa, I know you have thoughts. I thought paired with the skirmish and then the showing his ass in night one with Miles Kelly, I'm sure you've all seen the compilation that went around yesterday making fun of him. Not a great look for Ja'Kai Howard. Not a great look at all. His teammates lighting up Vermont in a 50-point blowout, and he's sulking in the corner, and then he gets in a fight on the plane. If this was a different era, like let's say this was in the 1980s with Bobby Knight, no chance in hell Ja'Kai Howard ever sees the floor for Auburn this year. Yep. Just no chance.
Yeah, and I remember Ja'Kai Howard recruitment. His recruitment was really weird. I remember following it pretty closely because he would like schedule visits to go to UConn, schedule a couple of visits to go to Georgetown, schedule a couple of visits to go to like other like SEC type schools, and then he just canceled them last second, and then everything just kind of rolled over, and then you watch him play AAU ball, and it's like this guy is the most athletic kid on the floor. He's jumping at the gym. He's able to hit shots from the outside. He has all of the skills there to look like a guy who could be in the NBA next year, frankly. Like he looked like everything he did on the floor really popped, and you could see how he could grow and get substantially better. But there were always those concerns. And like, there was a clip that went viral of like Dan Hurley talking about like, yeah, I'm looking at these kids when I'm recruiting them, but I'm looking at more than just what I see on the court. I'm looking at intangibles, are guys picking you up when you get knocked down, whatever that. And just judging on that, it makes sense why so many teams pulled off of recruiting Ja'Kai Howard, and then he just pretty much ends up at at Auburn, a team that wasn't really recruiting him until pretty late in the cycle. But like, you just watch the kid and he can fly. But yeah, just really concerning, just based on like the character of someone who has so much potential. Like Ja'Kai Howard could have one of the best. He's probably the best athlete, frankly, in this 2024 class. Special, but yeah. The concerns are there, and the sulking compilation combined with this, that's a really bad look. And that kid, if he wants to end up playing basketball at the highest level, which he has the talent to, you got to get out of this spot.
Here's the thing. And no, Peyton, I muted you just real quick because I thought you were about to have another coughing fit. So I just pre-muted you. No big deal.
Hold on. Time out. Has my microphone been shit this entire episode? Because I just checked my input and they said my webcam mic was the one that's picking up shit. And if that's the case, it's been awful. Really?
No, you've been fine. I've not heard an issue.
But you are a little louder than you were before, but
a little bit louder, but yeah, it's fine. On Ja'Kai Howard, just real quick, he's a young man, and so you want to give him the benefit of the doubt. But man, he really needs somebody in his corner right now to be like, dude, you are going to screw this up. Like, you are going to be, if you don't get right and start changing your mental aspect on stuff, you're going to lose this great opportunity to play for a program that's probably a top 3 team in the nation right now, for a really good head coach, and end up finding yourself at some shitty NAIA JUCO because nobody wants to touch you with a 10-foot pole. And you're going to screw this up. Somebody needs to get in his ear and be like, dude, you got to fix this. You have to. Or else all these dreams you have playing this and doing that, they're going to go out the window because your own damn fault. Somebody has to get to that kid right now, or else it's too late. Peyton, do you have anything on that real quick before we move on to the Champions Classic?
Yeah, I just don't understand it. I seen that clip when he was on the way back from Louisville yesterday, and I watched it a couple times late last night, and it's wild. You should support your teammates, especially when one of your teammates is on a heater like he was hitting almost everything. You should support your teammates, and to act like that is just kind of embarrassing. It's kind of wild. Like, if I was Bruce Pearl, like, he would not play a single minute off the bench. He would not play at all. Like, he'd probably be kicked off the team, because that is wild. And I'll tell you what, the next time that DeRosa or Trevor steals my point or makes a great point, I'm gonna start acting like that as well, because I guess that's the today's era of athletes. You do that type of shit. Like, I don't understand it. Support your teammates.
Yeah.
Well, somebody, again, give him a second chance, but man, he's on thin ice, is what I'm telling him. Don't screw this up. DeRosa, before we get to Champions Classic, I'm going to give you a minute. I know there's some games, players from the weekend, first week college basketball you want to touch on. I know Georgetown apparently has a superstar on their hands. Go ahead and hit them real quick for us.
Yeah, center Thomas Sorber is a name people should be watching. Freshman, played high school ball in Philly, Archbishop Ryan. He looks excellent. He has shown he does have a 3-point jump shot. I think he's like 1 of 3, 1 of 4 on the year, but like, it's smooth looking. But man, he is a menace on the inside. He has multiple. He doesn't have like a go-to move yet, but he's athletic. He can play at all 3 levels. He hits a face-up jumper a couple times. He has every level to it. And defensively, he's walled up pretty well. He's able to switch on guards. He looks special. There was one play, and granted, it's against Fairfield, so like, you're not playing like the best team in the country. But there was one play. He gets the ball on the perimeter, and it was normally supposed to be like a DHO to you're handing it to a Mack or an Epps who are going to create something. Instead, he denies the handoff, spins off his guy, hits this little bunny hook with the left hand, his offhand, and it was like, oh my goodness, you're not getting this kid for 4 years. I think he's a name that people should start looking out for, start watching. I've seen a couple highlights on him. It's like, yeah, you got to start watching Thomas Sorber. I don't know how good Georgetown's going to be this year, frankly, but Thomas Sorber is a kid, you're watching him, and at this point you are thinking, just please give me 2 years of Thomas Sorber. He'll go pro. He's going to look good. He's that 6'10" big. His game fits the NBA style because he does have the ability to shoot it from the outside a little bit. He can hit a mid-range jumper. He's effective at all 3 levels. He's pretty quick defensively, walls up well. This kid, and he's just a menace down low. He's strong. He's got to get in a little bit better shape. There was, in the first game Georgetown played, he was missing a couple shots short right around the rim. But man, he's a guy you get the ball to down low, and you're like, thank goodness. You just like, finally you got him the ball, and he's going to score it. He looks awesome, and he's a name people should start looking out for. He is special.
Two more things real quick on the Big East. One with Georgetown. I admittedly haven't got watched much Georgetown yet. How's my guy Jordan Burks looking? The transfer from Kentucky. Is he getting minutes? How's he looking?
He looks all right. There was one play. He's definitely giving you, like, with Micah Peavy, he's so solid defensively. I think Peavy's going to help make Burks better defensively. He's getting settled in a little bit. There was one play yesterday. He jumped to dribble handoff, gets it in transition, throws a dunk down. That was a play Georgetown hasn't had in the last like 4 or 5 years. He's athletic.
Well, I told you when
his jump shot isn't there yet.
No. It's still kind of like still kind of like off to the side, elbow, kind of cockeyed. But I told you when we texted about it when he committed there in the portal, athletic kid. He's going to give you great effort every night he's on the floor, and he's got a good personality. So there's pieces to work with Jordan Burks there. I think he's going to be a solid player there if given time. And then the other thing
we're worried about real quick is sometimes there's a couple times like he just loses focus for like half a second to a second.
Yep.
Like there was one time he had this awesome block in the first game, and like you see him look into the bench. It's like, Jordan, the ball's right there. Just pick it up and go. And he just kind of let the ball go out of bounds. But like you definitely see the potential with him. It's definitely going to take him a little bit of time to like fully hit that version of him, but the potential's there. Just got to shoot like 500 times a day.
And then real quick, Friday on episode 182, Coach and I talked about Kyle Neptune and Villanova. Disaster. Just the whole run's been a disaster. You're a Big East guy. I want to hear just real quick your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I was lower on Villanova entering the year. I had Villanova 10th in the Big East, frankly, which is, I think, the lowest you probably could have predicted them. It's just, I don't know. The roster has some talent. I think it's less talented than last year's by quite a margin. And I think people kind of overrated them because they still have talent, but they're less talented than last year. And I don't know. It's just, Eric Dixon's awesome, but just from the stories I've heard, it's like, okay, guys are committing to Villanova because Villanova's paying them a lot. They don't really want to be there. They don't love Neptune. And there's some program dysfunction, like an assistant wanted a promotion in his job, didn't get it, then immediately left for like FGCU or one of those schools types. Stuff like that. There's some dysfunction in the program. People aren't happy. It just kind of feels inevitable that this year wasn't going to go well. And through 2 games, that's what it looks like. And you play St. Joe's Tuesday, another team that does have talent, but is kind of underperforming. I believe they lost to Central Connecticut. That game's going to be really weird. And it's just, I don't know, you see the wheels starting to turn of the bottom completely falling off. I don't think it's there yet because they looked really solid Friday. I believe they played Friday. I don't remember who they played, but they looked good in that game. But I don't know. You see the way the wheels are going to end up falling off. And you can't trust Kyle Neptune. There was one game actually last year, it was against Xavier, where they're down 2 or 3 late, and like 20 seconds left, and they run this elevator screen for Brennan Housen. He steps on someone's leg and slips. So like you can't run the elevator. It's done. It's over. Then there's like 10 seconds left, and they just kind of walked around. Neptune had 2 timeouts. He didn't use any of them. Nothing happened. They didn't even get a shot off, and they lost the game. So it's just, there's some really small things with Villanova. It's just like, yeah, I don't know. The roster has talent, and you don't want to completely give up on this team because you've seen how good Wooga Poplar is. Eric Dixon's awesome. You have a point guard, which is something Coach Neptune hit on for the first time. You have a true point guard that you don't want to completely give up on this team yet, but I just don't. I don't see the vision.
Well, you can go back to episode 192 and hear mine and Coach's thoughts. We go kind of in deep on it, but I don't see how this year goes well, and I don't think the Kyle Neptune era is going to last much longer if it does kind of go south like we thought. But let's move on to Tuesday. Early week, we really don't have any big games outside of Tuesday's Champions Classic in Atlanta. Let's start with the number 1 team in the country, the Kansas Jayhawks, playing the first game in Atlanta on Tuesday night against Michigan State. Michigan State team we haven't talked about throughout the first week much. They're 35th in KenPom. They're 2-0, blew out both teams that they were expected to play against. When we look at Michigan State, it's kind of, I still feel like we don't know what we've got because in game 1, Jaden Atkins was tremendous. 23 points, did really well. The other night in game 2, Jackson Kohler comes off the bench against Niagara. He leads them in scoring with 20. And then you have freshman sensation Jason Richardson, gives him 12 points off the bench, son of Michigan State legend Jason Richardson, and one of the best dunkers I've ever seen, by the way. Xavier Booker, sophomore year, still trying to figure out his role. I think it's just, we don't necessarily know what we have with Michigan State. Is this going to be a good Tom Izzo team, or is it going to be another one of these teams where they have 11 losses and backdoor their way in the tournament? We're going to find out a lot about Michigan State, I think more so than Kansas on Tuesday night, Peyton. When you look at this matchup, obviously I think Kansas has got to be the favorite, but what do you see in this? Or is anything Michigan State going to do potentially jump off the page to you? Just kind of your thoughts on this matchup.
It's normally hard to game plan against Tom Izzo as it is, but when you don't have really much to go off of, you don't know how good the team's going to be, you don't know like who's going to step up or who you should really focus on, it makes it even more difficult. And I do think Michigan State could cause some issues for Kansas, specifically in transition, especially if they can get our guys in foul trouble like Carolina did in the second half against us. But the one big thing I'm noticing with Michigan State is same problem as last year. They cannot shoot the 3-ball really well. 25% from 3 is awful. If they don't hit shots in this game, then Kansas is probably going to have their way with them for the majority of this game, especially in the second half. 25% from 3. DeRosa, I don't think that's going to be able to get it done. You're going to have to be able to hit shots in this game if you want to compete with the best team in the country, the number 1 team in the country, excuse me.
DeRosa, real quick on that, I'm going to add to that. Michigan State has a lot of athletic pieces. When you talk about Cohen Carr, Jace Richardson, Xavier Booker, they got dudes that could really kind of get up above the rim and be athletic in transition. We know Izzo for decades now loves to run a secondary fast break. For those who don't know, you have a fast break where it's just kind of you kind of run the wings, you do what you would do in a fast break. But a secondary break is you have specific spots you need to be at, which is normally one big runs towards the rim, one trails for a three. The guy with the ball pushes, goes one side. You have guys fill in the corners, the wings, and then you run almost a set play out of a fast break. Izzo's done that for decades now. It's very effective if you got a team on their heels and you kind of run the spots you know you're supposed to be at. I don't think Kansas is going to get caught out much in that. But I think Michigan State, man, getting out in transition, playing above the rim, and a guy like Frankie Fiddler coming in from Omaha, he's a dude that can get you 20 and hit 4 or 5 threes in a ball game. I think he needs to have a big game against Kansas and really open that defense up, similar to what North Carolina did against Kansas during the comeback, and then just put yourself in a spot, the Final Four, under the last TV timeout, to be in position to win this game. Other than that, to Peyton's point, not shooting the three particularly well to begin the year. I think they got to hit some and then get out in transition, force a bunch of Kansas turnovers to have a shot in this one.
Yeah, I'm with you. You mentioned the secondary break. The Villanova with Jay Wright used to run the secondary break excellently because you would think they did, but their team actually ended up playing slow. But they'd use the secondary break, they'd get in their spots, and they'd use that to create mismatches that they just would attack consistently. And that was one thing they did very well. But yeah, in this game, I think my worry with Michigan State is that they just don't have that top-end talent. Xavier Booker, you mentioned how he hasn't found his spots yet. And he was a guy that believe I had Michigan State fourth when writing the ECB Big Ten preview. If he's not finding it, though, I just think the ceiling on this team just substantially drops. He was a guy they needed to be really good. And through 2 games, granted, only 2 games, a lot of basketball left, obviously. He hasn't yet shown that. I think that's a concern that Jaden Akins is their leading scorer. It's like, all right, he's a 5th-year guy. We kind of know what we're getting out of Jaden Akins. He's very good, but I don't think he's like the number 1 option on a great team good. And I think Kansas is going to be able to expose that. Kansas has that top-end talent. And on the interior, if it's not Booker who's able to pull Dickinson out and stretch the floor, and then you can run 5 out, and then you can get offense going from there, that if they're not able to do that, and you're trying to run a Carson Cooper, you're trying to run the Longwood transfer, whose name I cannot pronounce, you're trying to run some of these other guys, I think it's going to cause some problems. So I think this is a good spot for Kansas, especially because Kansas has been tested already. Michigan State hasn't. And you're starting Jeremy Fears, that's a redshirt freshman at point guard. You're starting I don't know. I don't see that top-end talent with this Michigan State team. It definitely concerns me there. And I think Kansas just has kind of that veteran savviness. They have their experience in these spots. I could not think of the word experience. That was tough. And I lean Kansas in this spot. I think Kansas can win it fairly easily. I think it'll be one of those games that'll be within like 7-10 almost the entire way. Then Kansas pulls away late. I just think this is a bad spot for Michigan State.
Well, if we're going off what we've seen through the first 2 games, they're starting that. I think it's Simon Zappala, the 7-footer.
Yeah, that was the guy whose name I
think it's Simon. It's spelled Szymon. So if I mispronounce it, I apologize. I think it's Simon Zappala. I'd imagine with his size at 7 foot, 245, he's probably on Dickinson, and that means Xavier Booker's on KJ Adams. And if that's the case, if Booker does not move his feet laterally, if he does not stay in position and stay home, don't fall for shot fakes, KJ Adams could go for 25 in this game and Booker in foul trouble. Because when you look at it, outside of Booker and Zappala, this isn't a big Michigan State team. It's not. And the way we talked about with Kansas, love running high lows and the empty side seals and all that, man, I think Kansas has the potential to really dominate the backboard, dominate points and paint, and cause Michigan State a lot of strife in this game. They're going to stay out of foul trouble. I know Izzo does not run zone a whole lot. He's a man-to-man old school coach, but I think it would behoove him to try some zone and mix it up, keep your guys out of foul trouble early, and dare Kansas to make it from 3. Dare Rylan Griffin to get back in form in a hurry. Dare Zeke Mayo to keep his hot shooting from the North Carolina game going. Dare make Dewan Harris a shooter. Don't let him get into the middle third there on the high pick and rolls, come downhill, throw lobs. Make him a shooter. We know he can knock shots down when he's open, but it's not his forte. Dare them to be shooters. I think that's the way to victory for Michigan State. But we know going in, Izzo's going to be adamant going man-to-man. they can win. They obviously can win. Anybody can win on a given day, but I just feel like this is a game that has Kansas dominating points of Peyton and running away late with it.
Yep, I think Kansas hits shots. We win the rebounding battle. We force Michigan State in some turnovers, and we do what we needed to do. I think we start the game off hot, and I think Kansas wins this game by 10 points.
Yeah, I could see a 10-point victory as well, somewhere around that 10 to 12. It gets away from Michigan State late. I just think points in the paint and fast break points are going to be indicative of what Kansas is able to do against Michigan State. And then let's go to the nightcapper. Would arguably say the bigger one of the two this year. Number 5 Duke against number 19 Kentucky. Both teams 2-0. Both teams are completely new teams essentially. Younger head coaches. This will be fun. You're talking Duke, Kentucky, in Catlanta. That place should be rocking for a 9:30 p.m. tip time. DeRosa, when you look at this matchup, incredible offenses against one another, great basketball minds at head coaches. Duke's got the, obviously, I think, with talent advantage, but Kentucky's got the far more experienced team. And I think the slightly better shooting team in this scenario. When you look at this matchup, kind of keys to victory, what are you looking for in this game?
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting game. I think it's definitely the more interesting game of the two. You mentioned it, Duke probably has a talent advantage. Kentucky, probably the schematic advantage. They're running that system. They're running it really well so far, and they're experienced in that. And like there was a clip that went a little viral. I don't know if you guys saw it, where you see Mark Pope talking through an ATL play where they end up hitting Jackson Robinson on that backdoor cut. Yeah, on that like little Princeton cut.
Perfect. They ran it perfect too.
Perfectly. Yeah, Mark Pope did an excellent job recruiting to his system. That was something, I mean, I was very high on the Mark Pope hire. I remember I texted you about it almost immediately. I'm like, this dude knows what he's talking about. He led BYU to those seasons where they were great. He's really sharp, and you can clearly see that. He's recruited to this talent level, to guys that will fit his system. I think this is a very tough spot. Jaden just got sacked, damn it. This is a really tough spot for Kentucky, that said, because you're going against a team that is another level of athleticism, but at the same time, Duke's going against that experience. So I haven't thought about this game too deeply, frankly. This is the first time I'm like initially talking my way through it. I feel like Duke has a slight edge just talent-wise, and you're getting an excellent game at excellent performances at a Constantinople so far. That Duke has that just next level of experience. Very interested to see how Kentucky looks to guard Cooper Flagg, just because he's able to put the ball on the floor and do so many different things. And I think Cooper Flagg's going to be able to disrupt them defensively enough. I think he will cause enough problems. At this point, I think I lean Duke, but I'm not very confident on it, and definitely want to hear what you guys think before I fully rationalize my thoughts.
Peyton, DeRosa mentioned Con Kneipel, just been phenomenal, like a big-time shooter, but he's got some bulk to him where he's getting to the rim. We know about Cooper Flagg. Like, we know about Tyrese Proctor. We know about these dudes, Malak Heyman, big shot blocker, Mason Gillis. Like, I think this is going to be incredible, high-level offensive basketball from both teams. It's just going to be who's going to be able to string enough defensive kills together to win this game. I really, truly believe that. Can Duke, with their youth and inexperience, stay disciplined against Kentucky's intricate actions on offense? The zoom actions, the multiple variants that they're going to throw out them, slipping out of ball screens. Amari Williams bringing the ball up the floor. Whoever big from Duke's going to be guarding him, it's not a traditional big. This dude's going to bring the ball up the floor off of a rebound and get into actions, and he's an incredible passer. We saw Kirk Creasy yesterday against Bucknell, 12 assists off the bench. Kobe Bryant is 10 of 12 from the three-point line to start the season. He's coming off the bench as a shooter. Otega Owe, athletic freak. He's getting you a big-time scoring and defensive. And to your point, DeRosa, I think that they go smaller. I think they put Otega Owe on Cooper Flagg for at least stretches of the game to be smaller, to stay under him, and the physicality and athleticism matches up. I think they go smaller to bother him and maybe push him off his spot a little bit. And then Jackson Robinson. I think Kentucky wins. This is the stage Jackson Robinson goes for a big, big game. Kentucky's shooting. Man, I think this is just high-level basketball we're about to see Tuesday night from two really fun teams to watch.
I don't even know where to start. I'm very excited for this game. Duke has, especially their starting five, they got size. 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", 6'9", 7'2". That's just for their starting lineup. And they got other guys. Their smallest guy on the roster is 6'5", and I'm pretty sure that's just Caleb Foster. They've got size like everywhere, and it shows. They got depth. They got the talent advantage. In games like this, specifically the Champions Classic, it's happened in multiple different games where a young freshman just has I don't even know how to even describe it. Has just an insane game. And there's not a better freshman in the country than Cooper Flagg. I think he goes for a double-double in this game. I think they hit shots. Defensively, they're really good. It's hard to go off stats right now because neither team has really – this is basically their first test against each other. But right now, as it stands, Duke has a top 5 defense in the country. Cooper Flagg is really good defensively. He can cause issues. And if Kentucky – in the game yesterday against Bucknell, they did not shoot the ball particularly well to start the game. They finished obviously well shooting the ball towards the end of the game, but start the game, that first 4 minutes, they missed a lot of shots. And if they do that against Duke and they get down early, then I think Duke wins this game, and that's who I'm going to pick. I am going with the Blue Devils. And a very close one.
I'm very interested, DeRosa, to see how Tyrese Proctor and some of these young Duke guards react when they have Lamont Butler pestering them for 94 feet. Like, there may not be a better defensive guard. Like, there's a short list of defensive guards that are elite in the country, and Lamont Butler is towards the top of that. How does Tyrese Proctor? Does he dance with the ball? If he tries to dance with the ball, then Butler is going to make his life miserable. But if they get in their actions quick, then it gives them a better chance. Lamont is that dangerous as a defender. Otega Oweh, again, another really good defensive guard. I'm just curious how those matchups, and the thing I love about Kentucky's offense, and you guys all seen the highlights and watched the games, how many times do they make the extra pass and the ball doesn't stick? It's boom, boom, boom. Oh, corner three, Ainsley Almanor, cash. Duke's going to have to stay disciplined in this game. They are going to have to stay disciplined. I think Kentucky has to win the rebounding margin. If they win the rebounding battle against this big Duke team that's athletic, I think they can win the game. I think the backboard, and can Duke stay disciplined against this just insane level of offense? DeRosa, prediction time from you. Who do you got? Duke, Kentucky, and why?
Yeah, Duke's going to have to use their length if they want to just disrupt Kentucky and kind of get them out of those actions, because if it's playing just a pretty game, if we're playing that slow cooking pretty game, Kentucky's just going to out-pretty them. If this game gets a little going in transition, if Duke's able to show off their athleticism and show off some of these other things they do well, and you mentioned it, Lamont Butler's just going to be in the grill of Tyrese Proctor. And we've seen Proctor struggle when he's gotten a ton of ball pressure. That I think that's kind of the angle that Kentucky can win with. But I think in the end, I'm going to lean Duke. I'm going to lean Duke small. I'd lean Duke by like a possession or two. But I'm really excited for this game, and I would not be surprised if that prediction is wrong. This is definitely the game I'm most looking forward to, without a doubt. This game is going to be awesome. And no matter what happens, I can't wait to overreact to it too.
Well, you talked about transition. Like, on paper, Duke probably wins that, but you got to keep in mind, Kentucky wants to play fast. Makes misses. They're getting the ball up the floor. And we talk about, and I'll give you guys this 2 things before I make my prediction. We talk about in modern basketball how important the three-point line is. Kentucky may do it better than anybody in the country when they're hit. Like, you look at all the dudes we've listed before that can knock down threes. You get clean looks, they make them, could be an advantage. But same goes with Duke. They've got dudes who can really shoot the basketball. And I want you to keep in mind, this is a game earlier in the year that normally the young freshman-laden Kentucky teams, when they play Duke, when they play Kansas, when they play Michigan State, they lose. Why? Experience matters in college basketball right now, more so than it has in a long time. This is a game that Kentucky, I think, flips the roles, exposes Duke's youth a little bit, right? And I think they win this game in a high-scoring affair. I think Kentucky hits some ridiculous number from 3, like 15 of 31 or like 16 of 35 or whatever. They're going to hit a lot of threes. I think they win this game. I think Kentucky wins a high-scoring affair, like 92 to 87. Very high-scoring, very entertaining, but I think experience in this early – if this was at the end of the year, you would probably go Duke, because by then the freshmen, as I always say, by then are probably really more sophomores and all that.
Yeah.
This is going to be a hard challenge for him. I could be wrong, like you said, DeRosa, and Duke may blow him out. But I favor the experience and the three-point shooting in this early season matchup. Give me the Cats, baby, down in Catlanta, and really make a statement that, hey, it may not be John Calipari anymore, and people may be overlooking Mark Pope, but you don't want to mess with this Kentucky team right now. I think they're going to be a lot of fun. Let's start wrapping things up here on this edition of the Everything College Basketball Podcast. Let's go bank on it. Early week games. We mentioned not a great quality outside Champions Classic, but I got one I'm keeping my eye on I think it's Tuesday night as well. McNeese goes to Alabama, number 2 Alabama. They lost their opening game last week in the field of 68. Did not particularly play well, but we know this team from McNeese is super talented, will be an NCAA tournament team, and will be an upset darling. Peyton mentioned Alabama maybe hasn't looked as great through the first 2. I think McNeese, here's my bank on it. McNeese plays Alabama to a 2-score game, under 6 points. They keep it close. They have their shots in the final 90 seconds to tie or win the game, and Alabama wins going to the free throw line. I think McNeese is going to put a scare in the Crimson Tide before Alabama ultimately pulls it off. That's my bank on it for this week. Whichever one of you two want to go now.
I'll go next. My bank on it stays with the Kentucky-Duke game. I think this game is going to be really intense. And I think it's going to come down to a last-second, under 15-second shot to win the game. And I'm sticking with my prediction. I would like to name a player, but I ain't got the balls to do that, even though I do think that it would be insane if I can somehow get this right. But my bank on it are so shit that there's not a chance I'm going to get that right. But under 15 seconds, Duke hits a game-winning go-ahead shot to beat Kentucky in Atlanta. Bank on it.
I'm going to go with a greasy bank on it. VCU this weekend played a very good game against Boston College. They smoked them. Boston College looked like one of the worst, if not the worst, Power 5 team in the country, and VCU looked like a legitimate tournament team. They looked like an at-large team. I'm going to go bank on. I'm going to take the other side. Merrimack. They played their first game of the season yesterday, actually, against I believe it was Vermont, and they looked really good. They smoked them. Merrimack's keeping that game close. Merrimack could win that game outright. I'm going to go Merrimack. I'm going to say VCU wins by 5 or 6 points. Bank on it. Bank on it. Merrimack gives VCU a scare, and Merrimack proves that team can win the MAC and can cause some trouble in March as a 14 seed that plays this interesting style, annoying style that's going to upset your guards. Bank on it, Merrimack.
I love it. I love the under the radar bank on it. That's like a backdoor cover in betting. I love it. Let's end this. First time all year we're doing shout outs now that we have a week's worth of games to shout out. I'll make mine real quick. Adou Thiero, 24 points. We talked about him. The ability to turn himself into a legitimate scorer is remarkable. Athletic freak. If he can do not 24 points per game this year, but if he can be a proven scorer, the dude's an NBA player with that body, an improved jumper, and athleticism. He's an NBA player. Adou Thiero, shout out, 24 points. Kerr Kriisa, 12 assists. If you would have told us a couple years ago at Arizona that Kerr Kriisa got 12 assists in a game, let alone coming off the bench to do it, nobody would have believed you. Immature, shit talker. He's still a shit talker. Like what he said about Cooper Flagg yesterday was hilarious, kind of getting under their skin. And I really hope he has a big game Tuesday and he out-dukes Duke. I think that would be really funny. But Kerr Kriisa, 12 assists, shows his maturity. He talks about it nonstop in these press conferences and post games where he's like, man, I'm just doing whatever I can. Whatever my role is, I want to win. I want to play. I'm happy to be here. And he's showing it on the floor. No look dimes, being unselfish when maybe he used to try to get his own shot. 12 assists is a huge thing for a guy like Kerr Kriisa. Just super impressive. My last one. Brendan Housen, through 2 games to start the year, has 39 points. He went for 17 and 22 respectively. He got out of that dumpster fire known as Villanova, went to Kansas State, dropping points. He's finally free from the land of garbage, and he's playing out of his mind through 2 games. So shout out to those 3 individuals right there.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we're saying, or I'll drop mine first. Yeah. I predicted Maryland to finish pretty highly in the Everything College Basketball magazine. I like this team quite a bit. Why? I already spoke about a freshman center at Georgetown. We're talking about a freshman center at Maryland, Derek Queen. Derek Queen's going to be a one and done. He's got an old school game, but he's able to put the ball on the floor a little bit. He's able to blow by some of your guys, able to hit a jump shot in his first college game. His first college game against Manhattan. I know Manhattan probably sucks, but in his first college game at Manhattan, 22 points, 20 boards. Derek Queen, that's a name to watch season long. That's a name to watch in the Big Ten. Big Ten Freshman of the Year candidate. Probably not with Dylan Harper, but like he's up there. He's on that level. He's going to make it a conversation as we approach February, March. Derek Queen's going to be a one and done. Derek Queen, name to watch. That's a shout out. Write it down. He ain't sleeping. You ain't allowed to sleep on him no more.
I love it, man. I
Awesome.
love it. Peyton?
I have 3. Bill Self, with that win against North Carolina, he's now tied with Fog Island for all-time wins leader in Kansas basketball history. Absolute legend. I definitely think he's the GOAT of Kansas basketball, but if he wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for Fog Island. Fog Island started this whole shit with Kansas and an absolute legend. So congrats to Bill Self for that big win on Friday against Tar Heels. Shout out goes to Zakai Ziegler from Tennessee. Kid, big time players hit big time plays, and if it wasn't for him, who knows what would have happened in that Tennessee Louisville game. Kid hit big shot after big shot after big shot. Defensively, he was great, and if he can do somewhat of that consistently, especially an SEC play, then Tennessee has a chance to be really, really good this year. So shout out to him. Last shout out goes to Jackie Johnson III from Fordham. Game winner against Seton Hall Pirates. Fordham knocked off Seton Hall 57-56. Jackie Johnson III hits a game-winning mid-range jump shot to win the game for the Rams. Shout out to him and big shot out of him.
Real quick, did you guys? I don't think you guys were. You guys were probably coming back from the Louisville game. You guys didn't see any of that game, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
We were.
So Seton Hall's up 5 late. Fordham has the ball. They foul a 3-point shooter. Kid goes to the line. It was Will Richardson, I believe. He hits all 3. Then Seton Hall gets the ball in bounds. Beautiful play from Shaheen Holloway. You have a 3-on-1. Prince of League base handling it. He drives the lane, and it's like, all right, 15, 12 seconds left. Passes it to Dylan Adewusu. Ball goes through his hands. Outside. Turnover. Going down. Jackie Robinson gets a shot. And that game was ugly. It was like that play kind of personifies it. But I was watching a good chunk of that game, and anytime you turn your head to like do something else, you turn back and you hear John Fanta saying, and player shoots it. Miss. Loose ball. Who's going to pick it up? Every time. Every time.
I feel bad for Shaheen Holloway. Peyton and I talked about this actually on the way home yesterday. You don't get great NIL support from Seton Hall. It's hard to retain people when you don't have NIL support. He's a good coach. We know he's a good coach, but that's an uphill battle with Seton Hall right now. And I feel bad for him. DeRose, before we get out of here, plug your stuff, where everybody can find you, all that good stuff.
Yeah, no, it's always fun shooting the shit. I was trying to think of something clever, but I did not. Shooting the shit with the ECB guys. Love talking the national stuff, man. It's so much fun. You guys definitely make me sharper in this stuff. So love coming on here. Anytime you want me on, let me know. Road to the Garden, where I got a couple ideas. I want to see if I can try it with the Road to the Garden stuff. Twitter, MD the Dream, House of College Hoops. We're bringing all this stuff. That includes the ECB podcast, which, believe it or not, I think is pretty good. I don't know if I wanted to.
Well, I appreciate that. We like to think so too.
Yeah. MD the Dream, Twitter, Road to the Garden, all that sort of stuff. Check us out if you got a moment. If you want to talk some Big East hoops, you know you boys will be willing to talk. Come on now. It was fun being on here, guys.
Well, we appreciate the hell out of you, and we'll get you back on when Coach is on. Again, congratulations to our guy, Coach, being inducted into the Central PA Hall of Fame, Athletics Hall of Fame. Can't wait to hear stories from that trip when he's back with us Thursday for episode 194. We will review the Champions Classic and more that happened throughout the early week of this upcoming week coming up. But for everybody here over at ECB, for the guys over at Road to Garden, House College Hoops, Dinga DeRosa, all of us here from the network, we appreciate the hell out of you. 125 people showed up to watch us live today. That's the most we've had in this early part of the year. It will only get bigger from here, so we appreciate the hell out of you guys. Until Thursday in episode 194, make sure you're watching college hoops. It's a fun freaking sport. It's a fun time of year. Champions Classic on Tuesday. What could be better on a Tuesday night? But until then, we will catch you guys down the road. Peace.